Sivako. It is time to make Sahelu with this podcast. We're going to connect through something induction. The network that's under and within all of us. And we're going to talk to AWA. But first, I don't know.
I should have remembered literally any of the Na'vi words to say, like when you were like, and here's Sam, and be like, claw, claw.
What a chome? Is that what they say? Or moron?
What's the I should have remembered moron.
Scone?
It is. It's scone. I was gonna say it sounded vaguely French. I remember.
Yeah. It's a scone.
Yeah.
But the way British people say it, scone. All right. Anyway, as you guys know, I don't know how to start the podcast, so it'll either be a variety of words in the Na'vi language, or something along the lines of "Welcome to Late to the Movies." My name is Ben Holden. This is a podcast where my friends and I get to fill in our movie blind spots. Each week, we'll pick a movie that either I or a guest hadn't seen before and really should have Sivako'd by now. That means, rise to the challenge. Rise to the challenge. Rose to the challenge. Yes. I am assuming past tense is Sivako'd.
Yeah, of course.
I wish I remember what I see you, the very dramatic.
I see you. A thing that Jack says to Rose in Titanic. Anyway,
damn friggin' Big Jim getting us again.
It's Big Jim Winter, James Cameron month. We're closing it out with 2009's Avatar. My guests, your guests, everyone's guests. This week, left to right across your podcast aisle, we got Kay.
Hello.
We got Bree.
Hello.
We got Sam.
Sivako.
Sivako.
Free Sivako.
Free Sivako.
Anyway, all right. I'm excited to talk about this one. I feel like we're going to have some opinions. But first off, let's talk about anything fun we've seen recently. This is actually the second time on the James Cameron month for you guys. Kay, you haven't been on in a bit though.
Third, kinda, if you count the re-release.
Oh yeah, that's true. With the re-release third, this exact group did Titanic almost a year ago. Mm-hmm. And now we're, back for more James Cameron.
We're only the hit. I refuse to do any more of these podcasts unless they're top 5 on the box office. So I hope you have an Avengers list soon.
Yeah, we'll do Big Russo's Solstice, whatever.
Mid-sized Russo Solstice.
Yeah, something like that. It's just Endgame and Cherry. And they produced everything everywhere all at once. So maybe that.
Just watch a season of Community or something.
That's true. We'll do Modern Warfare.
Yep.
All right. Anything you guys watched recently?
I saw Malignant.
And I'm going to insert a really weird remix, slowed down version of Where Is My Mind by the Pixies here.
That's great. Do we want a spoiler-free Malignant take, or do we?
I don't know. It's been like 2 years.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, it's at the perfect.
It's been on streaming for I think 2 years, while, so you've had time.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I am going to, and hopefully I don't stutter enough that this gets cut down. So I'm going to try to help out both our editor Ben and our listener. I am going to start a stopwatch in front of me. I'm going to talk about Malignant spoiler full for a minute. Is that okay, Kaylee? Do you care? Have you seen it? Okay. I know you've seen it.
I'm not gonna watch it.
I think I already told you.
Yeah, you told me what happens.
And then at a minute, I will stop spoiling. So you can feel free to just hit that 30-second thing twice in a row right now. So Malignant, I got so close to guessing the ending. Like it really started. So I missed the head bop at the beginning where it releases the twin. I didn't, for some reason, didn't check off on that thing. But I was like, oh, I get it. She had a tumor in her head, and now that tumor has coalesced into a body, and that body is committing murders. I got it. I nailed it. And ooh, I was so close. There was only one body. They tricked me. By the interview scene where he was calling, and which, to be fair, has a very fun little thing where I'm just picturing, I know he doesn't need a mic, he manipulates radio, but I'm just thinking the back of her head just having a little phone, just hey, I'm talking to you from inside. But yeah, the body thing was really cool. I'm trying to get spoilers out and then we can talk about it after.
Yeah.
Oh, I got 10 seconds. Something else bad happened.
The mom, it's a mom. It's their mom.
Oh, yeah.
That's a spoiler.
It is a spoiler. Okay, I'll be done. So spoiler free.
As the Terminator himself said, it's not a tumor.
that movie was very good. I watched it the little baby way, like I always do a lot of horror movies, where I looked up where the jump scares were gonna be.
Yeah.
So
Where's the jump.com? Would you make it a bookmark?
Yep. And it's funny because just a quick sidetrack. I looked it up for Skinkamarink, a movie that I never planned to watch. Skinnamarink, whatever. Sorry,
like the song.
I thought it was Skinkamarink. It's not. It's
Skinkamarink?
I don't know. There's little skinks, right? There's little varmints running around.
Like Skinnamarink.
Skinnamarink. I think I've been singing that song wrong
You've
my
been
whole
saying
life.
Skinkamarink?
I think I've been saying Skinkamarink.
I also have been
All
saying
right,
it that way.
We gotta
All right.
Okay.
Okay, keeping this. So Skinnamarink.
forget Malignant. We gotta get into this.
Real quick, but I just think it's funny because I looked up Skinnamarink and they only had, I think they had 5 jump scares, 4 major, and all those jump scares seemed like the worst jump scares that have ever existed. Malignant has one that was really bad, which happens in a laundry room, I guess I can say.
Yeah, the
spoiler
lady
free.
next to the window of the dryer.
Yeah, that would have. So I did know about that one coming, and I did have my eyes off the TV, and I thank God because that seemed like I would have lost my mind. But it's very good. There was some times that, because I also you can put on spoilers or not if you want to know exactly what's happening, which sometimes can be good because sometimes sometimes it does spoil you because like there's something like this thing's going to explode and it's like, all right, well that's a plot spoiler, but it's like there are other ones where they're just like, this person's going to grab a door or something. It's like, okay, so I know it's going to be a grab and I know it's going to be while she's looking at the door or something. But,
Y'all gotta live more dangerously.
Anything?
No, I was saying on the way here, I've really not watched anything. I mean, the last episode I was on was like months ago at this point, and I do not think I've watched pretty much anything in between. The only new thing I've been doing is I watched the new season of Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr., and I freaking love that stuff. So super interesting. Ben, I'm certain, is about to tell you about the movie binge that he's been on. So my one connection to kind of what he's doing is Joe Manganiello's episode of Finding Your Roots was very good. And interesting.
Very Italian, I would assume.
Wait, when did?
Oh no!
No!
Oh no!
Yeah, no.
Poor Joe.
His great grandparents were part of the Armenian genocide, and
jeez.
one of his grandmother is the only one who great grandmother, I believe, was the only one that escaped, and like his grandfather ended up being a Nazi on the other side, so they don't know like how that happened. It was a lot.
Oh no! Poor
Very
Joe.
interesting.
He's married to Sofia Vergara. Right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully hers was better.
Has a big D&D room in his basement.
Yeah, I'm just picturing.
He seemed like a great guy on it, though. Very, very cool.
I love them as a I can only imagine. I don't want to portray Sofia Vergara as someone who doesn't like playing D&D. If she does, but it does just strike me as like her coming downstairs and be like, "You boys have fun. I'm gonna go do literally anything else."
Transition to
what you've been watching.
Q Pony by Genuine. I've watched every Magic Mike movie in the last 4 days.
Yep. Joe Manganiello tired.
And it took you every single one of those minutes to watch all those movies.
They're all under 2 hours long.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the first one just drags really long then, because I did.
The last act 3 of the first one's not good. So that's probably what you're thinking about.
That was the last thing I remember about watching Magic Mike, because I watched it once and thought this movie kind of stinks.
I liked it.
We'll go into why.
This whole week has been a weird blur of theatrical re-releases of 20-plus-year-old movies.
Channing Tatum's abs.
And Channing Tatum and a bunch of other dudes' abs. So last weekend, I did go to see the remastered re-release of Titanic. Fucking great. Still a good movie.
How's the new star map looking? Looking good?
Yeah, they changed that. It looks good, I guess. I don't really know.
The right stars are in the right places now.
Yeah. But yeah, remastered in 3D. The 3D is whatever. I mean, it looks good. But just watching it in a theater again with like a lot of people was really cool. And it briefly held off Avatar 2 to stay in third place, but this week it's flipped and now Avatar 2 is in third place. So it's been a blur of going to see Titanic in theaters. Like we said last time, it's a full body experience. Seeing it in a theater with a bunch of people, awesome. Highly recommend. They redid the audio too, or remastered the audio, and there was definitely stuff that I hadn't heard before. And hearing it on a theater sound system is, A+. I think it's still in theaters. I don't know if it will be when this episode comes out. I also saw yesterday the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon remaster, which was only the closest place of showing it was in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Huh. So I went to the Lincoln, Rhode Island Mall to go to the Cinema World there. Theater sucks. Popcorn was terrible, but the movie's really good.
Yeah.
In between those two movies, I saw the first two Magic Mikes, and then after Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, I went to a different theater to see the third Magic Mike last night. Peppered in there has been me catching up on different Oscar movies as well.
Jeez.
So a weird week, kind of all over the place. Magic Mike ranking probably 2, 3, 1 or 1, 3. 2 is definitely in first though.
Okay. So I only watched the first one.
Same.
2's a lot better.
I don't know. It seems like a classic Steven Sodes movie. Like he's just Stevie Sodes and all over the place.
It's weird. So he directs 1 and 3. He didn't direct 2.
Oh boy, tough break for Sodes.
But his typical assistant director and guy that he works with all the time directed 2, and he still did the cinematography and editing. So he was
okay. So he was essentially doing it in a sense of probably not.
Yeah, 2 is like a dude's rock road movie where those guys just kind of trying to get from Tampa to Myrtle Beach for a convention.
That kind of sounds good.
No, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's way better.
Don't make me watch Magic Mike 2 XL.
And then Magic Mike 3 is just like putting on a show with Selma Hayek. That's the whole thing.
Like Salma Hayek.
Who in my delirium earlier today I called Helma Hayek. So I'd watch.
That's when she turns into the vampire.
You gotta understand the pure tonnage of abs I've seen this week exceeds that of a person who actually works in a strip club, I think. Between the 3 Magic Mics and no, they never show Chow Yun Fat's abs in Crouching Tiger.
No,
They should have.
How many is Kevin Nash in all 3 Magic Mics, or do they cut?
I thought you were gonna. Again, I'm addled. I really thought you were gonna ask if he's in Crouching Tiger.
Yeah.
It's like he would have stuck out.
He would have been very tall for them.
So the issue with the third one is Channing Tatum's the only character from the first 2 movies that's in this one.
Okay.
His friends from the strip club are in a Zoom cameo.
Okay.
That they're like, "Why are you in London?" He's like, "It's crazy, right?" Then Selma Hayek walks in and he closes the window.
That's fair.
That's basically it. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's really weird. But it's very Soderberghy. It's got some fisheye lenses and shots of people walking, and there's like some procedural stuff going on, like it's in all his movies.
Brad Pitt's eating in every scene.
It's a character choice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of eating. Now that I think about it.
He loves making his actors eat.
Bad up. I'm just a bachelor. Looking for some Avatar.
Any transition whatsoever. Speaking of abs.
Absitar. There's definitely
there's abs in this movie. There's a lot of
There's
abs.
a lot of you know what, now that I think about
a lot of Navi abs.
all the Magic Mike movies and this, there's a lot of
abs.
there's a lot of partial male nudity that I've seen. If you're Navi, let's do it. Talking about Avatar.
You really want the pony.
I was gonna say, you're still trying to do like some sort of tie-in to Pony?
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
Earlier when you were doing the pony noise, I literally thought you were doing Crazy Train because like my brain was
Right at my Ecron.
Yep.
We got there. I'm not happy about it, but we got there. All right. Our disclosure of previous relationship with this film. This is the second time I've seen it ever. Okay.
I saw it when it first came out. I saw it in theaters, and then I saw it again with Ben in like September when they re-released it.
Which was my first time.
He had not told me going in. He'd been like, "Oh, I can't believe you don't like whoa, whoa, whoa." And then he got there. He's like, "I've never seen this before." And I was like, "What is happening?"
It was a fun bit I'm proud of.
So yeah, few times for me.
This is my first time seeing it.
This is also my first time seeing it.
I knew it was your first time. We weren't sure on you.
Yeah. So this is a $2 billion movie that the 4 of us hadn't seen for the first 10 years it was out. Is that correct?
Well, she went to see it in theaters.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most of us.
Yeah,
Most of us.
because he hadn't seen it either.
Yeah, to unpack it a little bit. I was in college at the time and I didn't have 3D IMAX money. So
I was also in college at the time. I probably didn't have 3D IMAX money, but I more importantly didn't care at all.
that too. I was at a very pretentious art school.
I was not at that art school, but I was very pretentious. So.
Right, yeah, that's fair.
Did it come out in 09?
Yes.
So I must have seen it in college and then just not taking you with me.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Ooh, tough break.
I was
Tough break.
in. When did it come out in 2009?
I'm assuming how?
The later.
I actually have the Wikipedia open.
Because I was either in-
December.
Yeah.
Okay.
So holiday.
Yeah, because I was in. Yeah, so I was a freshman in high school. I never saw it. I had no interest in seeing it, but my dad saw it in theaters like 4 times. My dad
Yeah.
loves this movie.
I have a lot of friends who saw it, like, just kept going
yeah,
back.
just multiple times. Yeah.
Which
And my
we'll
dad's
get
not
to
even
later.
like a movie theater
No,
person.
I don't know anyone who quite had the Pandora blues, but that's like a real thing that people are depressed to go back to their real lives after spending time on Pandora. I think that happened. They have support groups.
Wow.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say I'd love to get into that at some point about how flabbergasted I am that people. We'll get into how I feel about this movie. It does not feel like a movie that I need to see 4 times within like a week or 2 span.
They didn't watch it on their couch. They watched
so
it.
we kept bringing that up.
IMAX 3D.
We kept I said to her, and kind of going towards your Pandora Blues thing, I can see how much more immersive it would be actually feeling like the meta narrative of like he's going in and out, you're going in and out of this world, like you're part of this world because everything's enveloping. It's very easy for me to remember like, oh, I'm going to go grab a snack because it's my house and then walk around not looking at Pandora for 5 minutes and come back and go, what's so special about this place? But
Yeah. I was in the other room anytime there was bioluminescence, so I didn't miss that entirely.
I got to rewatch it and close my eyes whenever they're back in like the ship or whatever.
Well, they make it look like a real boring place on purpose that they slowly unfold into this, lotus flower kind of design. Who wants to give us a 1-minute plot summary?
I will do it if
right.
no one else wants to.
Anytime you're ready.
All right, I'll go now. So there's a planet called Pandora, and a boy who is Marine, and his brother died, and he is paralyzed, at least from the waist down, it seems, and cannot use his legs, but his brother is I'm assuming a twin brother has the same DNA as him, which allows him to do the Avatar project, which means that he can go into the body of a Na'vi, who is a indigenous people to the planet Pandora. They're large blue things. You've definitely seen them. And those guys, they're trying to live in peace in a tree. The tree happens to be on top of a very expensive mineral called unobtainium, and humans are trying to go in there and grab that stuff. So it's a huge environmental play where they're like, ooh, we want to go in there with bulldozers and mess everything up with military industrial complex and all that stuff. And then they were like, we don't want to do that. And then obviously the soldier falls in love with somebody and doesn't die or doesn't want to kill them. And then so they do try to kill them. They kind of do. Then they don't. Someone gets almost gets transferred to a Na'vi. They don't. And then someone does later. Avatar.
Perfect.
Avatar. So a question and then a follow-up for you guys who haven't seen it before. Did you know... There's so much cultural conversation about the impact of Avatar. Does anyone even remember these characters' names? Did you know that the main character is named Jake Sully?
No.
Or Sully?
I don't think I knew that, no.
Okay. And then the follow-up was, if you did you assume Sully was a nickname and not his actual, on his license last name?
No, I mean, I didn't know, so no.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
actually said midway through, it's funny that his last name is Sully and not Sullivan, because naming a Sullivan Sully is a nice way to ingratiate yourself to somebody very quickly.
Yes, I think name, just through cultural osmosis back in the day, I did know that his name was Sully, but I think I did assume it was a nickname. But anyway, it's not. Jake Sully, Sam Worthington playing him. Some other main characters. You got Zoe Saldana as Neytiri. This movie, her parents, Wes Studi and CCH Pounder. Laz Alonso's in there. Sigourney Weaver. Stephen Lang's Quaritch. There's a lot of names in this movie. A lot of people.
Owen from Dodgeball. Which
Yes.
took me so long to figure out where I knew him from. I was like staring at him going, is that
Norm.
I was like,
We love Norm.
I was like, is that Cabbage from Scrubs? Nope, it's not him, but it's someone that looks like him.
Yeah, that's that guy.
It's that guy. I looked through his IMDb. I don't think I've seen him in anything else other than Dodgeball.
Yeah, and that's it. So first blush, did you guys like this movie?
I liked this movie.
Okay.
I like the world. I don't like the story.
I liked it. I feel it sounds pretty similar to like the way Sam said it. I was like, I liked it. I wasn't as obsessed as I think people were when people first saw it. Seeing it in theaters for the first time, it did feel like a really kind of new thing. It was a world that we hadn't really seen before, but it was one of those things of like the story itself didn't compel me as much as I feel like it could have.
100% agree.
Yeah. I like the ending.
Yeah.
But
Very basic story, seemingly on purpose to put either more energy on the production side or maybe more emphasis on the viewing side on the world and the creatures and the fact that they designed like a vascular system for every animal in the jungle.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that when we were watching. Like, the plot is super basic, and I think it is so you're more enthralled in like how pretty the world looks.
It does. Yeah. It does really feel like I've done my. Not that I think it was going to change my mind a ton, but it does feel like I've done myself a disservice not seeing this in IMAX. Like you can see, because I don't feel connected to Pandora at all, and I wonder if in 2000
still loves you.
Yeah, I wonder if I had seen this in IMAX in 2009, if I would have walked out of there being like, I get it, but also would have been like 19 and stupid. So like I don't know if I would have walked out of there just being like, this movie's bullshit. But like I saw Inception in IMAX after I had seen it the first time in the same time period, and remember being like, oh, I'm so glad I saw that in IMAX. That made such a difference. And that is a movie that specifically is not as tied to IMAX as Avatar.
No movie until Avatar 2, I guess, was filmed to justify the existence of IMAX 3D than Avatar.
Yep.
So having not seen this at the time, and just sort of my cultural knowledge of it was that this movie is stupid and bad. And then when I saw it for the first time in September, I had come around and it had been enough time and I had enough distance from like that version of myself, I guess, that it was in seeing it in the context of the way movies are today and coming out of the pandemic and just being like, man, something that's like made to be seen in IMAX with a lot of people. Like, I just want to see that. And I liked it a lot the first time. And for whatever reason, I was telling Kay on the way here, watching it at home last night and this morning, played like fucking gangbusters for me. I really dug it. So maybe it's the second time.
Maybe.
I know you just said you don't feel any need to revisit it.
I'm not gonna probably.
But I don't know if it's just like with the context. For the first time I did see it was IMAX 3D. And not just that, but a remastered version of it that just came out, a few months ago in IMAX 3D.
If I saw it a second time, it would definitely be, I don't know if they do when they do the third Avatar movie, if they're going to bother to put original Avatar back in theaters.
Yeah, I don't know either.
If they do,
theoretically, it'll be substantially less time in between.
Yeah, I might be tempted just to know, but even then, while I see it, you're still, like you said, you're still dragged away from like the 2009 feeling of like, man, this was a big deal in this year specifically, because like I don't think the CGI looks terrible. I think that still kind of holds up. Like you can tell that the Na'vi are CGI, and you can tell that the humans in there are not that. They luckily do not do a ton of overlap with those characters, which I think is for the benefit of. They
do a lot more in 2.
Yeah,
but they can't in this one.
Yes, so it's interesting. Just overall opinions, I've got very, very similar to Kay. Felt the same way that if this was a movie that was making like, let's say I made like 400 million and it was just, considered a good blockbuster film. And like it didn't win a lot of Oscars. It got nominated for a lot of Oscars. It didn't win any Oscars. But I think my focus is so story based, and that story was so like, I wouldn't even say mid. I'd say it's less than mid.
Seemingly by design.
Yeah. The world building great.
Yeah. And I recognize why they kept it such a basic story. It's like a bare bones framework of a story so that they can build this world out for you. Yep. And it all makes sense in that he was seeing this as prologue. Like this was not the ultimate story he wanted to tell. He needed you to understand the world to a certain extent so that he can tell it in later movies.
And then he waited 10 years to make another movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think partially why like Disney built a themed land around it is because the world was so well realized and so well kind of structured, and we understand that because of the first movie, but I do think that meant that the story itself needed to be secondary to the world in a certain way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if
That's fair. It just loses points for me. You know, like
Yeah,
that's
no, totally.
yeah, like that's cool. He made $1 billion, $2 billion off of this. He accomplished his goal. That's great. In my opinion, doesn't matter as much for him, and that's fine. But yeah,
I'm like, it's
No,
not
he's
a
listening.
bad story. Yeah,
Big Jim, I can't say I love you 'cause I
it's not a bad story, and I think it's Sam Worthington, right, that plays Jake. I
don't.
think him
that
and Zoe.
doesn't say it all right there.
Yeah, it's he and Zoe Saldana do a great job, and I think everyone's doing fantastic things. It's just like it's not a story that I feel like is super original, which again is by design. They want this to be something we can make parallels to stuff that was happening in the real world, as well as parallels to other movies that we've seen that this happens in. But it's not something that I'm going to be like, what a lovely love story. I'm like, it's not. It's what it is.
I will say, and we won't have to get into it now for the Greg rule of doing everything in order so that they can actually follow that. But
Greg's seen Avatar.
that's
fine.
fair. Okay,
Yeah.
so just for Greg, it's fine. But for just to say, there were 2 scenes in this whole movie that I thought, wow, that was both very well acted and very well written. Like specifically was like, wow.
Yeah.
And they did both include Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana. So I will give them both props. I think I am kind of surprised to a little degree that this didn't make Sam Worthington a bigger deal. It's kind of nuts how much he has, what is it, Wrath of the, or whatever the Titans movies are right
Yeah.
after
Clash of the
this, and
Titans.
just kind of flops right on his face. But
Yeah,
I mean, that
this
was
is
like just a horrible movie. It was
Yeah.
badly written.
Under the Banner of Heaven, I want to say, is him too.
yeah,
Yeah.
they had him right there.
Didn't
And
Yeah, well, it was a crazy long audition process. They saw a lot of people for that role, and they ended up going with him. That, I don't know if you could tell, isn't his real accent.
yep.
But that was the guy that Cameron wanted in that role. And he gets a lot of slag for being bad in this movie. Well, I don't think he's that bad.
I don't think he's that bad. And I think like I said before, I think he has moments. I think he does good with the important stuff.
But watching it again this time, having seen the second one too, even though she's in it less, I think it's weird how good Zoe Saldana is at this.
She's really good.
Yeah, if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, the way they had to film this feels like such a unique skill that no one else has had to ever perfect. And it's weird that she's really good at it. I think all the emoting with the dots on your face, wearing like the skull cap with the fake dreads on it and whatnot. It's weird that she's so good at it.
Yep.
I think
The
She's really
scene, the scene specifically, where kind of I know this is like literally the end of Act 2, but the jig is up on like, and he's like, hey, I tricked you. I didn't mean you. Like the thing that has been done a million times. Like
my friends paid me to bring you to the prom, but then I fell in love with you.
And then your hair went down, and you took your glasses off. That moment happened, and I think I literally said before it happened, I was like, oh, here we go with this. Like this is going to be a classic. Wait, I can explain. And then she's like, you can't explain. I'm going to get out of here. They don't do that. They avoid that very specifically by having him be like, hey, I fucked up. Here's everything I did. Sorry. And then you can see her face, specifically see her face process everything, get extremely sad, and then it immediately fuels anger.
Yeah.
And she literally hisses at him or whatever and tells him to get, GTFO.
Yeah.
And I was like, she nailed that. Like,
Yes.
you can take whatever you want out of Zoe Saldana of this whole movie, but man, did she crank that spot right there.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about the plot a little, such as it
No.
is. I don't know if you guys, I'm assuming you watched the version on Disney Plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not the extended version.
Oh no.
And I don't know that it's the theatrical version either.
Was there context that made the story better?
Not necessarily. Just it depends on who you ask. I think it's fine without this, but the big difference, and there's a bunch of other stuff throughout, but just the big one is that the movie and I say it's either special or extended. I don't know. Everyone uses different terms. In the longer version, it starts on Earth and it shows you what Earth looks like.
We do kind of have to assume that because there's that line that's like they ruined their sky or whatever the line.
Yeah. I kind
Got
of like,
wallied.
yeah, yeah. Basically, they wallied the planet.
Yeah.
I kind of like that it's not explicitly confirmed until right before the final battle where he's like
Yeah.
communing with the tree and he's like, they, killed their mother. There's no
Yeah.
green on their planet.
Which you can tell it's in the future because of all the technology.
Right.
so.
Yeah. I like this version where it just starts on the eye opening in the tube.
Yep.
And all the guys floating around.
The Lost special as well. Just eye open, eye closed.
Yes, exactly. He's being voiceovered by, you don't know for a while that he's doing. I guess you're supposed to assume that this is all video logs that he's doing, or at least that's the conceit that they use in this movie. The second one, he's just doing narration. They don't feel the need to like justify that he's doing a video log, which is better, I think. And yeah, it's just into it. I think 35 minutes before you actually get into the forests, and until then, you're just sort of in very metal and boring looking military facilities pretty much. You get to meet some new characters. Quaritch gives a speech in front of, or I guess a safety briefing in front of a conspicuous looking window. Did you guys pick up on the symbolism here?
I did not. I'm afraid to say.
The window that he's in front of has shutters and then like a thing over here that make it look exactly like an American flag.
Oh, good for them.
Good for them. In case it wasn't clear that this is metaphor.
Yeah. It's rewatching it and watching it back and kind of seeing all of that. I remember watching it the first time and thinking, well, this is all very heavy handed of like what we're talking about here. And it's like, okay, but it's also, this is the story that he wants to tell. And I get that, but it feels very on the nose and it's not ever explained enough, I feel like, to justify kind of what's happening, but I don't know. I always was just kind of watching it. I'm like, all right, so colonialism. I get it. All right.
Well,
Environment.
they need the
Environment bad.
unobtainium. It's under the tree.
I'm
Yeah, so
They've been here, what, like 10, 15 years or something?
something like that.
James Cameron was just watching An Inconvenient Truth, like really mad, like this isn't enough. Like I need to spend money to make everyone understand.
Joke's on you. He wrote it in 1994.
Yep. Joke's on Al Gore then.
Joke's on Al Gore. He stole this from James. He stole it from James Cameron. Also, joke's on Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's a reason they have to have a subtitle.
Yep.
Because James Cameron wrote Avatar way before them. Yeah.
Military guy, good job.
Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang.
Yeah.
Who they call slang and all the behind the scenes stuff. And his like thing says slang on it, which is great. And when they're in the volume actually doing like the performance capture, his thing says slang, and I think it's cool. He's even better in the second movie.
He is
Spoiler
great in the
alert.
second one.
He's also the villain in the second movie.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But hey, that's the number 3 highest grossing film of all time. So it's your fault if you haven't seen it yet.
Dang.
Maybe in 15 years.
I mean, I saw Sigourney Weaver was also in that too.
She is also in it. No one dies and everyone's related. It's very anime now. Yeah, I like that it does kind of pace you in because, especially at the time, I bet if you were going to see this, like, oh, this is on track to be the greatest, highest grossing film of all time, and everyone's talking about the visuals and stuff, it eases you into it. It builds it up. It made me think a little bit of Aliens, not only a Sigourney Weaver here, but it's also kind of like they're not really in a fight until 45, 50 minutes in.
Yeah.
But like the fight spectacle in this is getting to the forest and you're like, oh, these animals are cool.
Yep.
And then that even eases you into nighttime. And then he's got the fire and you're like, oh, it's nighttime. It's scary. And then she turns the fire out and the bioluminescence starts. And you're like, oh, this is what people were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's almost an hour in. So the first hour in both of the Avatar movies, I feel like is probably its weakest, but I still think it's okay.
Yeah. The bioluminescence is really cool. I won't take anything away from that. That is the walking with the thing, the connection.
Yeah.
I'm also always a big fan of obvious religion in movies. So if you have something that like can be corroborated, essentially like fantasy, but doesn't necessarily have to go that far. So it's very nice for me, at least, when they're like, there's there's our God and we pray to our God, but the God responds, and like it doesn't have to be like this weird soliloquy. It's just like that's how it works.
Yeah, it is an interesting thought experiment. Like, okay, what would your culture look like if you could talk
prove
to God,
right? It was proven.
And if that was just a fact of life, and everyone's like, well, yeah, that's a thing that we can do.
Yeah, no one has to. There's no faith. There's just it's here.
Yeah, it's here. It's over there.
We can prove it. Yeah.
We can store.
Sigourney Weaver at the end is like, it's scientifically proved, like something is happening.
We can like go to the library and access like the living memory of our ancestors.
Yep. So yeah, walking around, the thing lighting up as they walk is extremely cool. Like that was looking at the bioluminescence was probably the most like jealous, too strong a word, but like jealous I was of not having seen it in IMAX.
Yeah,
that and like probably
it's
the
a
flying
showcase
scenes.
scene. Yeah,
are probably
both,
the two biggest.
Both are showcase scenes.
But yeah,
it's good. Neytiri gets introduced at this point. I do like how she's introduced, looking through the things, holding the bow.
Yeah, thing lands on the bow.
And the seed falls on her. And she's like,
maybe not.
Right.
I said,
I'll allow it.
Keep your secrets.
All right, tree, keep your secrets. Yeah.
The character creation was something that the first time I saw it was stunning, and the second time I saw it, I feel like I'd forgotten pieces of how the characters worked and how fully realized everything was. So it was just as interesting when I watched it again to be like, oh, there's an entire world, and all of them, they had obviously thought through, how does this work within the ecosystem of everything else? To the point where I found them a little bit off-putting at points of like, these feel like a little bit too real or like weirdly like, I don't know. I didn't like that I could see exactly how all their veins and the vascular system and stuff worked. I was like, I don't know about this
like
one.
all the tendrils and
the
stuff.
tendrils. I think the tendrils just freaked me out. I was like, I couldn't feel my thing
on the braids and stuff and how they can connect them to the tendrils of like the other animals. Yeah, that freaked me out.
I think it's super cool, and I
really
really think it's interesting. I think it's super cool, and I just was like, get it away from me.
I don't mean to go back in time. He's out here like in the bioluminescence already. It's nighttime. She's bringing him to Home Tree. But I do want to take a little bit of time to point out that in the sequence that I think is actually pretty good, where he first avatars into the other body and he's like runs out of the clinic and out into the world, and people are like playing basketball, and he's running really well, and you're like, oh, he knows how to run well. And Norm's trying to chase him. Poor Norm. Norm's just trying to do the right thing. And the reason I wanted to come back is because Sigourney Weaver had a custom-made Stanford shirt,
which they had to make for a Navi.
Yes, for a 9-foot tall lady, they had to make a Stanford tank top. And I think that's just great. And that is the exact kind of move that a botanist that went to Stanford would do.
Yeah, 100%.
She needs everyone on this planet to know that she went to Stanford.
Even though they don't know what Stanford is.
Yes.
I did find out that was supposed to be a blank tank top, and they added in Stanford because Sigourney Weaver is a Stanford graduate, which is another fun.
And she insisted on it, like a Stanford graduate.
Yeah.
I assume that's the case because later in the movie, she's wearing a tank top that's the same color that doesn't say Stanford on it.
So they probably forgot to edit it.
Once it like in the Home Tree getting destroyed sequence, she's wearing just like a maroon tank top that doesn't say Stanford on it.
Yeah.
Mostly, I feel like because the Stanford thing's like a joke. And they don't want you to be thinking of jokes at that point.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
But yeah, back to he gets to almost a Home Tree, but then he gets basically taken at knife point because Sute and his people are like, this guy sucks. We don't like him.
Yep.
Bring him in. And he gets, they talk it out. They decide that he's going to get taught by Neytiri. She's like, fine. And then he starts, this like whole middle part of the movie is sort of a lot of almost montages of him learning.
There was a very specific point where I said enough with the montages. Let's get on with this. Like I literally said that out loud. So yeah, I do remember that very, very obvious or very clearly.
He's reporting back to the military wing, Quaritch and his people, to give them intel on how best to destroy the tree if need be. Trying to ingratiate himself to hopefully negotiate a peaceful way to get them all to move.
And get his legs back.
Get his legs back. But as it goes on more and more, he gets more on their side. And
Yep. We did have a lot of we had a lot of jokes involving the Steve Lang, like joking about the legs, like he just had the legs, like ready to go. So like, no, you're never getting these legs. I'm throwing these legs out.
Throws them over to the waterfall.
Like I'm gonna have 4 legs now. Like screw you, Jake Sully. Just walked out to fight him with 4 legs. These are your legs I was gonna give you.
That hadn't occurred to me.
He just says it so like he's like
your real legs.
Your real legs.
Not these legs.
Not these
anymore.
legs. He starts twirling them.
Yeah. Even though it is a little montagey, there is a lot of sequences in here that I think are pretty good. He like builds it up. You know, he's finally almost gets to ride a horse a little bit.
Yep.
He gets a clean kill on one of those like dog things.
Yep.
And she's like, "You killed that small dog. It's time for you to tame an Ikran." But yeah, it's good stuff. They relocate to the floating mountains, the Grace Augustine team does, and you get your first look. And Michelle Rodriguez is like, "Look at these mountains," or whatever.
I think that was a direct quote.
Yeah. And Norm's like, "Cool mountains."
Can we talk real quick about the transition of Norm is like, normal, and then they have like a whole like second act where he's all butthurt about Jake Sully being like
he gets over it real quick.
and then like that just goes away. It was almost like they were halfway to like, do we make him like Nate and Ted Lasso season 2? No, okay, we're just done. We're gonna bail out on this.
And he's a good example of this thing that I do like a lot. Is there's a lot of exposition and info dumping they have to do.
Yep.
And the way that Cameron primarily chooses to dole it out is through people being mad at Jake for not knowing this stuff already.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, Jake, it's AWA. You don't know AWA? Here's 5 facts.
Here's the greatest hits of AWA right now.
Yeah, and that's most of how things are explained to the audience is through people be like, "Oh, fucking Jake doesn't know who Sute is."
Didn't read the briefing packet at all.
This
Top 5 people who hate AWA and Enya's number 4.
Yeah.
I was like, Jake is so stupid. We got to tell him again.
All right, here's
Throw
the
his
hierarchy
legs out the
of
window again.
Here's the main characters in Home Tree, Jake. Here's who's going to take over after they die.
It's the guy that hates you. Of course it's the guy who hates you, you stupid idiot.
I hate you too, Jake. And here's 10 more informational tidbits that you need.
They start slapping him like airplane. Like, like everything's going to be okay.
They're throwing him around.
Somebody's got a gun.
And it's both sides. Both like the science people.
Everybody hates him.
Both the science people explain things to him in a frustrated tone, and the Navi are like, "Come on, Jake, you gotta know Sahelu."
and which is so funny because like they spend the first 10 minutes of the movie explaining why he didn't ask for any of this, and like and also the context of like it's like cryo. It's supposed to be like cryo doesn't. There's no actual time change. It's not like you wake up and you're like, "Ooh, that feels like 5 years just like whipped by." It's like literally just feels like snap, you're done. And they're like, "Oh, your brother's not here. You're a giant jackass." And he's like, "My brother just died like a week ago."
Right. Yes,
Still,
for him,
yeah.
It's like, sorry, my brother died. Oops.
Someone killed him for the paper in his pocket.
Yeah.
It's not someone. It's a guy with a gun killed him for the paper in his wallet.
I don't know if you meant to say that like Ben Affleck in The Town, but mission accomplished. It feels like it takes so long for them to get through their montages, but it also feels kind of weird how implicitly they trust him by the end of it. But like, when you're living day in and day out with somebody, it's weird because like.
He's been like deeply embedded for about 100 days, I guess.
Yeah, so like I guess it makes more sense. But yeah, I just the way that the pacing was, it kind of felt weird. That it was like, yeah, you still remember this as a human in this body, right? Like,
yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
Jarhead clan, still very good line, by the way.
Yeah.
I meant to bring back to that. He is prompted by the Na'vi to explain himself, and because he's a Marine, he has said he is of the Jarhead clan.
Yeah.
And I specifically like in the beginning, when they had. Like, they have Stephen Lang joking about, like, you said Jarhead clan? And he was like, yeah, I did. Like, oh, you scamp. We're going to get you so many legs.
That's worth an extra leg. We're going to give you some good jumping ones.
Oh God.
Some boosters in the heels.
It's going to have heelys.
Yeah, it's going to have built-in
Stop
heelys.
it.
You'll never have to wear shoes again.
Oh,
Be
God.
zipping around. Basically Blade Runner-y and future planet. This middle section turns eventually into, I guess, the core like love story of this. They talk to the trees, and they get into some extracurriculars, wink. Which I don't know if it was in it's a weird lineage of, it's a pretty short scene on Disney Plus.
Yes.
In the theatrical.
Oh, that was the
I
extended
think it
cut
was
I missed.
longer. Yeah, because they actually like intertwine like hair things,
Ooh.
which was the joke that everyone was making about the movie after it came out, and then it's not in subsequent versions.
I understand why Disney wouldn't want to put that on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Now I like that scene ends and he wakes up in his own body. He's like, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
I should have been like, I'm on a 6-year tour. Like, I'm not here forever. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't take a wife in my avatar body. That's not something he should do.
Yeah.
And he immediately realizes it. But hey, it's a love story. And then the dozers come, and that's basically where this turns.
Yeah.
The dozers come, he tries to explain his shit. After they they're mad because they see him on the camera, breaking the camera.
Can we have a brief moment for the backup noise that they bothered to put in this movie?
Oh my God, that was so funny.
It was so good. They're destroying everything, and then they cut to. I don't even think it's them. I think it's I'm sorry, I can't remember the Na'vi names, but the whoever the captain is, the guy, crap.
Like the main rival?
The main rival, thank you. Those are the words. Sute. I think it's Sute's view, that sees there's about 6 bulldozers or something. Yeah. But one of the bulldozers is just backing up, and it just has the backup noise that everyone knows, like boop, boop.
Oh my God.
Those are big things. You got to know if they're backing up.
Yeah.
It was just very funny to see it just be like, yeah, that is a bad time. I don't think that giant thing would maybe have that noise. But.
Probably not.
I'd forgotten how intense that part is when he won't wake up and she's
sad.
trying to drag him with her, and
that was one of the
with
classic.
the parallel of how it's so oh, you should eat, you gotta eat, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
carefree, and
I do like that he's eating fast, because it would have made that scene a lot worse if he was just they just kept coming back to him and he was like, I love bacon, 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 bacon.
In that sort of lead up, there was in the extended version a scene where he's just not eating anymore because the human food tastes just so bad to him now. And so I think this was a continuation of her you gotta eat something of a previous conversation. But they were correct that bit lifts right out.
Yeah.
You get that he prefers it in the avatar body without that pretty clearly. I like that you sort of, not that you forget that he's sort of occupying that other body, but you're not fully reckoning with what it means for the Na'vi to be around that body when they're not in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cool kind of trippy sort of existential crisis type of
theoretically he's coming out of that avatar body extremely hungry, sweaty, probably, different things like that. It's probably a harsh wake up every time.
And just for Neytiri on the other end, it's just actually they had this great night, but now she's immediately getting the cold light of morning and oh, this is just a shell.
Yep.
That is currently empty, and when I need help, it's
and shaking
not here.
It doesn't help you. Yeah.
And then they pull him out when he's in the home tree for the first time, right?
Yes, he goes to sleep and they pull him out, right?
Well, they go back to Home Tree, right? And then they're like, they're coming.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And this is when he is like,
And they force him
This
out
is why
because they catch him doing the thing, and then they run back and they hit the button because he's
Yes.
like mid they're gonna kill.
yeah. I think he literally says, "I have to tell you," or like something like that,
Yeah.
and he falls. As so does Sig.
Yep. I do love the way they show the bodies fall in like slow motion every time. It never got old of just like them walking and God.
Yeah.
And that would be like really disturbing to see.
Yep,
and
over and over again.
Laszlo-
Especially seeing one go and then being like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're definitely next," Like
And then he
they're-
turns to the camera and says, "Not like this."
Yeah.
Not like this. Matrix reference. And yeah. And then Laz Alonso runs over and goes like, "Yeah, this is like a weird dude. We should kill him right now.
Yep.
We don't like this guy, right?"
No.
And Neytiri hits. And et cetera, et cetera. Back in the other place, Sigourney Weaver and Jake make a plea to like, "Hey, you gotta let us do this." And I think it's Giovanni Ribisi that says he has 1 hour or something.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the thought process is like, it's actually kind of surprising because you figure Giovanni Ribisi is just going to be like, just kill him. Like, I don't care.
He was
what
so
does,
cartoon
actually.
villain that I definitely didn't expect him to give him a chance.
They do it again, like for a cookie cutter story. Another one that kind of surprises me is how much Giovanni Ribisi is not wholly evil.
No,
he starts
he's
this
just
movie
a-
being cartoon villain, and you can see like him seeing the destruction obviously affects him, even though he's still like, shit, I'm gonna money and stockholders are still his benefit, but you can tell he's like, oh, I really wish we weren't doing this.
Yeah. He's on the near side of Paul Reiser and Aliens.
Yes.
Of like his first priority is looking out for corporate interests.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily enjoying the evil part of it.
Yeah. Like his job's a disaster, and also he committed war crimes.
Yeah.
Or so, like, I'm sure he's just like blue screen of death
Yes.
the entire way back.
I don't super agree that that he feels bad because Jake is like in front trying to wave to stop, and the guy controlling the bulldozer is like, "Hey, there's someone there," and he's like, "Oh, just keep going, he'll move."
So,
Yeah.
And then he
that I think he's
pushes
fine.
it forward.
I think it's
Yeah.
when
It's
he's seeing the
after Home
tree
Tree.
burn is when you kind of get the scene where I'm not saying he's a redeemable character. I'm just saying, like, I think
in the
from
movie,
his
the people
perspective-
in that control room are like, "Ooh,
Yeah, I think he
We
really. I mean,
should
there's
have done
people,
this
there's people
genocide.
crying in that control room. I think that's also
Yeah.
a nice touch. Is people like, especially like the Michelle Rodriguez, like I didn't sign up for this. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of I didn't sign up for this people.
Mm.
I don't think that he feels that. I think his thought at that time is probably like, shit, I hope this is all worth it. And at the end, be like, that wasn't worth it. I fucked up major.
I think he's just
But
more
still
inconvenienced
terrible
by
person, still should go to jail. Like all that stuff. Like, I don't think he's redeemable. I just think it is kind of nice that they didn't just keep him cartoon villain to the end.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
he
I do
it's a little
agree
he
more
with
tail
that.
interesting.
between
Yeah.
his legs out of that movie. He does not get like blown up because he's like, I'll burn Pandora to the ground before I let them get a dime out of this.
That's so that goes into the home tree destruction sequence
Yeah.
because obviously it doesn't work with Jake in there.
Another one I'd be curious with on IMAX because that seems like it's terrible, obviously. So like it being your whole view must be
Watching it for the first time, I figured that was because there's so much lead up to
Yeah.
for basically from the beginning, them being like, okay, and if this doesn't work, we're going to go blow up Home Tree. And I remember in the lead up to it, and then realizing like, oh, there's still an hour left in this movie. Thinking like that has to be like the final battle. They're not actually gonna do that because that seems like such a horrific thing, and it does feel pretty weighty, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't mean just like the people who get Fabrizio'd under the branches.
Oh.
Oh, mamma mia!
Mamma mia. The smokestack is coming down.
No.
Another one like Titanic, though. Again,
Sorry, I just had to get the
No, you're
Fabrizio reference.
billions of dollars of people watching this movie over and over again, just being like, I mean, at least they know when to go get a snack if they're not feeling like watching a sad part. Kind of like if you're watching Lion King in theater for the third time, you're like, oh, there, the wildebeest. Time to get a refill on my popcorn. I'll be back.
Yeah, but the whole sequence is really upsetting.
Yes.
And it plays like that Well,
not quite as sad as Titanic.
and yeah, you get like Quaritch being like, "Good job, everybody. Drinks are on me. Let's
and
boogie."
everyone's screaming and crying, and
Yeah.
he's like dapping up his pilot, like, "Hey,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
job, everybody."
That with like the people in the control room who were like, "This genocide did not feel good."
As far as the genocides we've committed, this one's pretty bad.
Yeah, and then obviously the Jake and Grace are with the Na'vi, and CCH Pounder cuts them free, and like, so they don't like just die, but
Yeah.
there's not a lot they can do to help.
Yeah,
And then they get pulled out. And on this rewatch, it did make me think like, why do they arrest Jake? I guess like,
well, Jake did attack the government property.
yeah, but why didn't they arrest him the first time when it was clear that he had kind of gone rogue?
Yeah,
Like, why this time? But whatever.
they're holding his legs hostage, and they were hoping that he'd come around.
I mean, I get it. Like, obviously they have reason to, but I just don't know. Like, well, they let him go back in.
yeah, they probably shouldn't let him go back in,
Right. Yeah.
Especially for an hour or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Didn't seem like they had a full hour before the attack. Anyway, yeah. So the attack aftermath. Wes Studi dies.
Yep.
Gives his bow to Zoe Saldana.
Yep.
And Wes Studi, great. I don't think we mentioned before. He's great. He's not into this movie that much, but really wonderful actor. And yeah, so she gets his bow. That bow's cool.
Yep.
She does some work within the rest of the movie and most of the next one too. And yeah, then it's kind of the come down time. All the stuff's bad. They're in jail back on the base, but then immediately broken out.
By a great line from Michelle Rodriguez, where like she walks in and you're like, oh, she's got to be in on it, right? And then she like comically like puts them down, like, oh, these tree huggers are getting steak or something like that. And you're like,
Yeah.
Oh, Michelle, we know what you're gonna do.
And this guy's like, I gotta check out this steak, and he takes his eyes off her. And she goes, "You know what that is?" Yeah, you know what that is. Gets the gun right in the back of his head, and it knocks him out too.
Yep. Does an elbow drop off the top rope.
Yeah. In the whole like commotion when they were trying to pull Jake out to arrest him, Norm punches a guy too.
Yep.
Norm's getting in on it.
Norm's getting on it. The beatdown commenced.
And they also arrest Sigourney Weaver, which is also like,
While she yells,
That
"You
seems
murderer,"
Yeah.
or whatever. Like,
it's like she's going to be a disruption. We're like completely under martial law here at
Yeah.
the human base at this point. And yeah,
so they break
But-
out. They steal a helicopter or whatever the equivalent is.
yep. I do like this Quaritch moment where he's just like, "Fuck it, I don't need to breathe. I need to murder this
I need to
person
murder him,
more
yeah.
than I need to breathe."
That's like the first of like 3 times with that guy where it's just like, man, what a real one, willing to risk his life just to kill another human being. Like,
Yeah, I want to circle back on him more closely when we get to the finale, but yes. But yeah, they go back out to the mountain base. Oh, well, actually they go to the mountain base, then take it into the forest. One thing I picked up on this time, Norm just rides it the whole time.
Yep.
He's just like Teen Wolf in it.
Yep.
Does he need to? It seems like there's like a whole day cycle while they're flying that thing.
I think he goes in for most of it, then he comes back out just for
Yeah,
the,
just for the camera
Yeah.
shots, just for the landscapes. And yeah, they get into the forest, and then we're basically in final battle mode. They're gonna come try and blow up the Tree of Souls.
Mhm.
It's gonna be a bombing run. We need to stop them. We're gonna have this amount of time. They're gonna come in this valley. Jake's goes back into the body. He's like, I need a big play. I can't just go back to the Tree of Souls. It's time to grab Taruk. Kaylee,
Yeah.
do you recall the first piece of Avatar media I saw?
I don't know if I do.
You do. It was a live performance.
Oh my god, I forgot. I repressed, maybe is the better way to put it. Yes. I think I mainly keep forgetting that you hadn't seen Avatar before this.
I had not seen Avatar when I went to the Providence Civic Center to see Cirque du Soleil's Taruk the First Flight.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a lot of Cirque in the Soleil. And
It's mostly
Soleil.
projections.
Yeah.
It's mostly projections, but sometimes they're on a seesaw
Yep.
of bones, a bones seesaw.
I thought you were gonna say Avatar on Ice.
Just about.
It's what it felt like.
Oh man.
It's the story of the first Taruk Makto.
Mm.
I think Neytiri says there's been 5 ever. That makes Jake the 6th, I suppose. But it's the story of the first one. It's not a very circuit. It's mostly hanging.
It's a lot of silks and a lot of just hanging around.
I will say that
we couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I am
do
so
it.
impressed.
But do you need to be like primetime Cirque du Soleil level to do it? Probably not.
No.
It looks hard.
Yeah.
But it also looked like a lot of people in skin tight blue bodysuits hanging from ropes.
Yeah.
For like 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I
There's
was
some
saying,
tumbling.
yeah, I was saying, I feel like this is like before you get into one of their other shows, like you got to do this one first.
I don't know that part's true. I don't know. You got it.
No, but I was saying that was kind of like my thought process of like, this is
a beginner show.
This is a beginner show. But yeah, no, that was the first thing that you'd seen Avatar wise and didn't know that at the time. But
That's so
yes,
funny.
it was told the story of the first Taruk
Makto. We all know these words.
Yes,
And yeah, it was pretty good for that, but like, I don't mean to make fun of it. I hadn't seen Avatar. It made it really hard to follow. They spoke in Na'vi. I think also English,
probably both.
but a lot of Na'vi.
A lot of Navi.
Yeah, so...
Do they hold up like big papyrus subtitles for you?
I hope so. I don't remember that.
It was like a big blank sheet, the entire length of, I guess, what would have been like the ice rink in Providence. And they were like doing like really cool projections on it for the different stuff. And like there was a volcano that went off and lava went over those places. But yeah, it's still like, I hadn't seen Avatar.
Yeah.
I don't know why we went. I didn't pick to go. Neither did you. Anyway, so I don't know. I'm not going to be like, turn this off and listen to a different podcast, although that's often my tone. But if you're curious about Taruk the First Flight by Cirque du Soleil, there is an entire Blank Check episode about it. Anyway, Taruk Makto. Jake earns the mantle by doing a crazy jump onto the that one's called like not an obstetrician, but whatever. A Leonoptrix, something like that.
Obstetrician.
And
He's
yeah,
an ophthalmologist.
he lands on it. He becomes Taruk Makto, goes to the Tree of Souls, and everyone's like, "Oh fuck!" Like he seems pretty good at some of this stuff, but now he's the best at everything. And he's like, "Yep." You want to try and save Grace?
And then they were like, no.
Like, we'll try. And so that's what happens. They try and save Grace, who got shot.
Big prayer
by
circle.
Quaritch.
Yep.
Yeah, this scene's pretty interesting and has surprisingly huge ramifications for the series going forward.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wink.
you can resurrect people, but not Sigourney Weaver then, maybe later. I don't know.
It's more complicated than that.
I'm sure it
Much
is.
more complicated.
Considering she launched it up the tree into a beacon of white light
Indeed, she
that
did.
holds the thoughts of their ancestors or whatever the heck. So,
Yep. So Grace is, I guess, accepted into Awa. She's like, I'm with her now.
Yep.
All good. I'm cool dying. And that sets up our final thing. He's like, he's so mad. He gives a cool speech. We got to go unite the clans.
Yep.
This is when they show you that there's a bunch of other clans.
By the way,
Yeah.
ton of other clans.
Ton of other clans.
They're just not on top of Unobtainium.
the Ekron Riders to the east, sea.
And how long? I know we're in the middle of the plot, but how long do you think it took them to come up with the name Unobtainium? Like 7 minutes?
Unobtainium is just a like typical sci-fi word that's been used for like, and I think it's
That's
just
fair.
like James Cameron's, homage to classic sci-fi that Unobtainium is always like around in different contexts.
Okay, that's fair. Continue with the tribes.
Which is why it's funny that everyone made fun of him for calling it Unobtainium. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, it's like not a proper, but it's like, it's a noun that exists
Yep.
like in the dictionary or at least Wikipedia. And so he just used that as shorthand, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, this is good. We like his speech.
Yep.
What do you
Great-
think about his speech?
Great speech.
Okay. People are pretty hyped to unite the clans.
Yep.
And they're like, well, it's Taruk Makto. I guess we got to go.
Yeah.
The final battle is on a couple different levels. Like literally, there's the ground forces, there's the air forces. And yeah. You guys like this battle?
It's a cool battle. One thing I will say about the battle, so there's a lot of battle, and then there's like kind of like a quasi death montage halfway through that I feel like was weirdly
it's
timed.
the nearer my God to thee.
Exactly. So like that literally what was going through my mind was like they're killing off everybody so quickly with like a sad soundtrack in the background. Why not spread these out, like over the course of the battle rather than just bang dead, bang dead. But
Sute goes down,
doing what he loves, yeeting people off of a ship.
Michelle Rodriguez goes down. We cut to Jeanette Goldstein telling kids about Tir na Nog. Sute goes full like V for Vendetta, just like I'm going to make this move. I'm definitely going to die, but I'm going to kill like 5 dudes first.
Yep. I did find Michelle Rodriguez was sad. They did a good job making that sad. Like she's like, I gotta go.
Yeah. So there's and then Zoe Saldana, they're closing in on her.
Yeah.
And you can tell she's gonna fight him anyway instead of just running away.
Yep.
But then Awa has heard him.
Yep.
Jake made his plea to Awa before the battle.
And Chekhov's armored bullets don't work against these guys.
James Cameron movie, every detail matters.
Yep.
They tell you, bullets don't be an idiot, Jake.
Don't shoot this rhino.
Jake, you're so
hammerhead.
stupid. Bullets don't work on that. Callback. And and bullets don't work on that guy.
Yep.
And boom. The scream that guy lets out as he gets stomped on. Fun.
It's really good. It's like I can't remember the actor, but in Jurassic Park 2, there's the guy that gets stepped on by the T-Rex. It seemed very similar to that.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about Jurassic Park, I feel like a lot of the Ikran noises are like sampled raptor noises from Jurassic Park. I don't know if that's just how I heard it and my ears are bad, but it sounds pretty similar a lot of times. And so stuff's turning now. Jake is jumping onto ships and just throwing grenades into their engines.
Yep.
Which should have been option 1. I don't know. Plan A, dude, next time. And then the bomber goes down before it gets to the Tree of Souls. He's on Stephen Lang's ship. There's a hole in it, but it doesn't quite start going down. And Jake falls to Earth as he throws a missile into its prop. And Stephen Lang has that cool moment where after Jake in another callback falls down, but actually like manages to fall leaf to leaf, where Stephen Lang gets in the mech and jumps out with a huge explosion behind him, which is just like straight up anime final boss entrance shit, but it's so good. And then they have a little fight. And Jake's like, there's no reason to still be fighting. You can stop. Or just like, no, I can't. Jake's
It's
like,
personal.
Good. That's what I hope you'd say. And they fight it out. I like this final fight. I like that Neytiri kills him.
It's a really good scene, and it feels very cathartic when Zoe Saldana is the one that kills him.
Yes.
Slightly avoiding white savior stuff.
I'll get into that at the end. I've been waiting.
About at the end. I mean, all that's left now is the little like epilogue montage of she goes into the thing and actually like picks him up and stuff. And one of the few times you see like real interaction between the bodies.
I liked that. I thought that was a nice.
Yes, apparently that extremely hard and took a ton of time to do that one like scene.
Yep.
But that's nice. He says, "I see you,"
Yep.
and he actually means it this time.
Yep.
It's his real body.
With his real body, with his
for
little,
and then there's
his little tiny body.
We already mentioned Giovanni Ribisi and all the humans, or the Sky People are going back for now. Some are staying behind, Norm and Max, and presumably some other people.
Yep.
And then
So just picturing like a scientist, like, I was on your side the whole time. You didn't see it, but in the background, ooh, I was doing stuff.
yeah, it seems like the whole Avatar project team was like Grace Augustine's people. It seemed to be a lot of people that worked there,
Yeah.
but
And
whatever.
that you would figure would have no real
Qualms about.
qualms with the.
They wanted to be there just like studying stuff. They were like botanists and shit. And then there's just the ending bit where he does the body transfer thing and his eyes open. It's a symmetrical note to end on.
Yeah, it's a symmetrical note that ends that makes you want to watch a sequel that didn't come out for 14 years.
And it flashes Avatar on the
Yeah.
screen. And you're like, oh yeah, there wasn't a title credit
There wasn't.
block until this. It's pretty
Which
cool.
makes the papyrus text all more the stark when it pops up for the first time when they're
Yeah.
speaking Navi.
Oh right,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's the subtitles too.
Yep.
James Cameron loves having fun with subtitles.
Yep. Hey, it made for a great SNL skit.
Yep.
If you haven't seen the SNL papyrus skit, go watch it now.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
It's pretty good. Gosling never better.
Nope.
Um,
Best performance of all time.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing else around the movie contextually to talk about.
No, definitely don't need to talk about
So-
the
They do pretty explicitly make the military presence very American and predominantly white.
Yep.
I guess in order to make it so Jake is, because everyone has to tell Jake how stupid he is the whole time. You
Yep.
want him to be a white guy that doesn't know anything.
Yeah, because
But
that
then-
Sigourney Weaver's like whole character at the beginning is like they had to send me a dumb Marine that doesn't
Yeah.
know shit.
Yeah, and you don't want, and so you'd want that to be a white guy that everyone's telling is stupid the whole time.
Yeah.
But then there's some complications when he's also the hero,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Before Bree speaks, because like that'll make this the funniest thing that I interrupt her. I want to say before Bree has her whole take, which is important. That I thought it was I was like the whole time I'm like, I can see the white savior complaints, but I'm not quite there yet. And then the person literally like lets them free and says, save us while crying or something. I'm like, ooh, I'm back out. That was real bad.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Once he becomes Taruk Makto, it's like only Jake can bring the clans together.
Ooh, no, it's earlier than that.
All right, Bree.
Fair enough. That's when it's really heavy.
Fuck up Big Jim Winter right now. Do it. He
I've
deserves
been
it.
told I've been too nice to Jim this month, so go for it.
So I'm not Native American, but I am a minority that has been represented very poorly and stereotypically in movies before. So I feel like I have to bring it up. But so I am very pro environmental themes and I'm very pro anti-military themes. So those were good. Again, I loved the world. Everything was beautiful. I'm a sucker for bioluminescence. Like if there's ever a bioluminescent scene or town or anything in a game or anything, it's my favorite. But man, is this one of the worst white savior movies I've ever seen. It is very racist towards Native Americans. They depict them yipping and coming in horses with their bows and arrows. They're called savages multiple times. At the very beginning, before Zoe Saldana sees him for the first time with the bow and arrow, the little like seed lands, and that's the start of like, oh, this is the chosen one or whatever. So I was like, okay, so this is where it starts. Like he is the one
It's
that's
covered
going to
in
save
seeds.
them. Yeah, that comes later. That's
true.
That's what makes it even worse because it's
All
a
right,
much
that's once
more
it's
obvious.
nighttime.
Yeah.
It's a much more obvious symbolism that like, oh, this is like he's going to be important. So there's just so many things that like he picks up on everything really quickly. Like he learns the language in 3 months. Like he's ingratiated within 3 months, pretty much. When like people have been there for years and they're still like they're not still learning it because a lot of them are still like fluent and stuff. But like I think the one guy was still kind of rusty on it after like 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But he just knows it after 3 months. But oh gosh, what else?
We can break some of it down if you don't want to just get it all like out right away.
Well, I'll mention it and then we can break it down. But yeah, there's the when the spiritual chief, I forgot her name, but yeah, when she cuts them down and saying you're the one that's gonna help like save us, that just explicitly said it. When he tamed like the big bad Ikron. It's like, of course, he's the one that manages to do it. Like no one else can do
no one
it.
had thought to
No
have
one
come
had-
from
Yeah.
above before.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they just. Oh my gosh, it's very, very white savior. Like it romanticizes colonialism. Oh my god, I have so many qualms with this movie. And so do a lot of people because Native Americans tried to boycott this movie and the second movie. James Cameron has said a lot of horrible things about Native Americans. Like he doesn't care. He made this movie because he wanted to. He didn't care about what ramifications it had for people whose like actual lives this happened to, because like actual Native Americans went through very similar things where like their braids were cut, they were tried to be like ingratiated. So
Homes were burned down.
homes were burned down. They were like shoved to reservations.
Yep.
So yeah, fuck this movie, honestly. I don't like this movie.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
As you were talking about it, with my class, we talk about the Nez Perce, which Chief Joseph there's a speech that we read, which on its own, the kids just don't get kind of the backstory of what had happened to this tribe. And so we do a lot of background work to get to it. And it's one of those things that they basically had to try and flee from the military at a certain point. And they had never signed any treaties saying they'd give up their land, but other tribes in the area had. So they basically were like, you gotta move to the reservation. And they were like, well, we never signed anything. We're not. And then eventually the military just came in and fought them and was like, we're going to move you forcibly. So the entire tribe tried to get to Canada. Basically, if you get over the border, they would have been left alone. They were 40 miles from the border when the military caught up to them and basically like put them in like under siege. And it was like people were starving. It was like one of those things that I'm like, this was the first year that I'd really taught that. And then watching this again afterwards, I was like, this is literally like the parallels are insane. And for it to then have been a white man that saves them is galling.
Yep.
Oh yeah, he's pulling from like real things that happened,
Yeah.
obviously in the movie.
And in not a great way.
No.
No, yeah, for sure.
Question for the sequel. So to pull it a little back to the plot, but not on purpose. But like at the end of this movie, he turns into a Na'vi, essentially. Obviously, white man, all that stuff.
He still has an extra finger, so they can tell.
Yeah, but going forward, is it still considered? Because I assume maybe I'm wrong because I haven't seen the new Avatar movie. Is Sam Worthington, Jake Sully, still the lead character? Like, is it still a story based from his perspective, or is it kind of?
Yeah, it's more they're definitely shifting to more be about his kids.
Okay.
That they have. Essentially, between the two movies, the first like 10 or 15 minutes of two is kind of montagey about like, here's what Jake's been up to for 10 years. Here's their kids and stuff. But yeah, it's still mostly about Jake, but it's a lot about the kids too.
Okay, because it evokes, I wonder, like going forward with all this criticism in the space, because this isn't like Bree's original thought. Like this is a thing that is shared by. I mean, it is, and it like it is shared by a lot of people. I should say it's not.
Oh yeah.
So
totally.
So like
Not the
it's
first thing to say.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's probably a better way of putting it. But it's interesting to me going forward because like, well, now he's a Na'vi. Do you hide behind that? You're like, he's not a white savior anymore. He is one of them.
Yeah,
Like-
it's a little cake and eat it too kind of thing because like he is obviously like that, but then they just give him dreadlocks in the next movie like pretty explicitly, and you're like,
sweet.
did you have to do that? And they're like, we'll
We
fucking
did.
do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, so it's a little. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better, but it's different. They handle it differently in the next one. But yeah, I think other people make the big plays in like the final fight of the next one, but he's the one that like, and we already told you Quaritch is the villain again.
Yeah.
And Quaritch, as all the best James Cameron villains are, just a hater.
Yep.
And he's so he explicitly wants to kill Jake because he doesn't, because like
'Cause he's a
Jake
hater.
personally
Yeah.
and Neytiri because she killed him, but he's more like the whole like betraying your race thing he's still mad about.
Do you think?
But
there's
aside from that, the actual like big plays made in the final fight are by people that aren't Jake. It's the kids or the Tulkun.
Another comment that I had was: has any Sigourney Weaver character ever given a shit like in her entire filmography.
She's always been too old for this shit.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's
Yeah.
It's really nice that this was some of the things I haven't mentioned about James Cameron this month. He seems like a real asshole.
Yeah.
That isn't the most fun guy to work for.
It's fun.
So it's cool that Sigourney Weaver's like, it's been 30 years. I can work with him again.
It's funny because I was talking to my mom about something else, and I mentioned that Ben was going to be here because Ben is my mom is my cousin. My mom obviously knows Ben because she is his aunt. So I was mentioning that, and she's like, I keep forgetting to like listen to that podcast. And like my joke was, well, if you want to hear a bunch of family members you never hear swear, that'll probably be fun for you. I was like, oh, we're doing Avatar, and she's like, I don't know what it is, maybe or something like maybe it's because James Cameron's a pompous ass or something. Or like maybe I said it. Maybe like it's because he's a pompous ass, and she's like, he is a pompous ass. And it's like I do think that's part of the problem with Cameron.
Yeah.
I was telling her I remember for the Oscars this year.
He does own it though.
Yeah, does that make it better?
It makes it less annoying.
That's fair.
He knows that that's his image, I guess.
But the 2009 Oscar, 2010 Oscars for the 2009 season. Avatar is nominated for a bunch of stuff. Avatar doesn't really win a lot of the big categories, shall we say?
No, it mostly wins below the line. It seems it's the front runner coming in. It's early in the night. It's winning, the technical shit, and so it seems like there's maybe an Avatar sweep coming.
Yeah, and I remember again being 19, having not seen this, but caring a lot more about the Oscars then than I do now, and just sitting there going like, Catherine Bigelow is nominated for Best Director, and people seem to like I had not seen The Hurt Locker. I have not seen The Hurt Locker even now, because I often get it confused with other military movies that came out in that era. But I was like, Catherine Bigelow is James Cameron's ex-wife, and boy howdy would it be fun if she won Best Director instead of him. And that's what fucking happened.
Yeah. It's weird. That got played up a lot, but like James was over it. He had been married 2 more times since having been married to Catherine Bigelow.
And they do seem to be fine. Like it does. I don't think there's like
because they were on like the campaign quote unquote trail together that year.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But like I never cheered so hard for someone to win Best Director.
I think
for
a lot of
movie I
people were
hadn't
pretty
seen.
stoked about that.
Yeah. First female director to win too, I
Yes.
think. Yeah. So
And now it won't happen. The streak won't continue this year because there weren't any women nominated, but
They didn't do anything,
the
right?
last-
That's why that happened.
Ugh.
the last
Fucking
2
hell.
best
too busy with their nails and stuff.
Yeah, the last 2 best directors were women, so there's been 3 now.
That's good.
Yeah,
It's
her, Chloe Zhao, and Jane Campion last year.
It turns out, not just white dudes have stories to tell. Who would have thought?
If it makes you feel better, only one white dude's won Best Director in the last like 13 years.
Thank God for those Mexican directors, man.
Yes.
They're just cleaning the fuck up.
Yep.
I think one thing that I do think is good about is talking about this movie now is how much more critical we can be of it, not being in the wave of everyone being like, it's the greatest movie you've ever seen. And it's not. There's cool stuff. The
I don't
world is
know.
cool. The bioluminescence, the creatures are amazing.
I loved the creatures, yeah.
But the
Creatures are
story
cool.
itself has a lot of issues. I don't.
It's problematic at worst and basic at best. Like that's really what it comes down to. for
Story-wise.
me. Yeah, story-wise specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason people have compared it to a lot of things. That you hear the no cultural impact stuff just as much as you hear Pocahontas
Yeah.
and
Fern
Dances
Gully.
with Wolves in Space.
Yeah.
I guess Dances with Wolves, especially being the white guy.
Yep.
But yeah, I think the reason that it exists is because of the tech first, kind
Yep.
of, and then the story just sort of is what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting to think.
I think the story and characters are a lot more interesting in the second movie.
It's interesting to think like what his other, besides just doing the same plot with a different protagonist. It's interesting to think like if his main goal is kind of like you just alluded to was get big cool sci-fi world that I can manipulate.
And at least in like interviews and stuff, the message of the conservation and environmentalism seems to be a very big deal to him.
Keep the conservation message. Like,
Yep.
what other story could have been told that maybe was a little more nuanced, or even, to put it flatly, more interesting? That could have. I feel weird saying, because like it's one of those things, like you could be like, oh, it could have been more successful. It's the most successful movie of all time. Like, you can't really say, oh, he flubbed it. But also, like Ben alluded to, up until this year, has anybody had a thought about Avatar between the years 2010 and 2019? Like, I don't think so. I don't think any, and I alluded to it in the Titanic one, or I shouldn't say alluded, I straight up said in the Titanic one, about, I mentioned having not seen Avatar, and every single person told me, you're good, don't worry about it. I've noticed recently the only people that have told me to watch it since have been in the last year, and it's people being like, oh, it's fine. Like, even before this podcast, before I had seen it, I mentioned to Vaz, who's been on a lot of episodes of this show, we were watching Avatar for the podcast, and I was talking about how I was kind of already negative on it just because of what I had heard and stuff. And his point was like, you're going in with the absolute wrong attitude, blank your mind, just see what happens. You might be surprised. Yeah. And I wouldn't say I was surprised. I don't hate the movie, as I said up front. Obviously, now that we've gone over some of the more problematic parts, I acknowledge those are a problem. Those should have gotten cleaned up.
That's big of you.
But as a white man who speaks for everyone, including
I see you.
But God damn it. But yeah, I wish it was better. He could have taken some chances with the story specifically. I'm a very story specific person. I'm a very character specific person. He did some good character work. His story is meh. And it's just sad because I could have been all about it. Like, I could have been seeing this movie 3 times in theaters too and been like, damn, what a great movie, James Cameron. Thank you. Like, because he's made good stories. Yeah. You can't even say, like, James Cameron he wrote great movies before. So he's got it in him. And he just didn't do it.
Yeah. Can I interest you in water? What if this movie was a lot wetter? I think the second one's story is a lot better.
I have heard that.
It's not, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but
it's not a Robert Altman film.
Right, yeah. It does make a lot of sense that this was written in 1994. I don't know if I know that. Like, it makes a lot of sense.
Fantastic point.
Like, you saying that, it just like kind of came to me, and I was like, oh, if this was 1994, it makes a lot more sense.
He wrote this before Pocahontas came out, right? That's also important.
So, I mean, the 1994 is like an 80-page treatment that he did. Yeah. I'm assuming that it changed a ton since then, and they obviously had opportunities to recorrect.
Oh yeah, I'm not letting him off the hook. I'm more just saying it makes a ton of sense.
That's fair. He would be like, this was written before Titanic and designed to be the one that he made right after it, coming out in like 1999. So it would have been a 90s movie. And in that context isn't necessarily, well, no, not necessarily. It's not better, but it is like a lot of movies like that were around then.
I would have loved to see the 1999 version of Avatar. Well, it's got to be like
they didn't make it because they couldn't technologically.
So that's the thing. I was like, I wonder, was it stopped? Were they going to try to do more practical stuff?
I imagine he was like, you know what? The tech isn't there right now. We got to wait. And then he went to go see Phantom Menace, saw Jar Jar, and was like, yep, we're
waiting.
Tack another 10 years onto that.
Sad Jar Jar Binks noises.
Yeah. So the tech side of things, we're coming up on probably what'll exist is now we're 30 something. But real quick on the tech stuff, it is so many different systems were invented for this, and just some of the people that we mentioned before. Stan Winston's guys work on this one. Stan Winston is the creature designer on Aliens. He made the Alien Queen. Weta, the Weta Digital Workshop, the people who did the Lord of the Rings movies, they work on this one too. They're in New Zealand. James Cameron lives in New Zealand now. They filmed the live action stuff all in New Zealand in this movie. So when you do that, Weta Digital does your shit. They also worked with Industrial Light and Magic, who we've mentioned before. The way they filmed this is insane. They call it performance capture, not motion capture, because the technology that they use is they're in the volume. The volume is just this big empty room that they can essentially turn into a digital space so he can direct the scenes that are going to be CGI in live action with actors all in their, performance capture getup with a camera on a boom that goes like 6 inches in front of their face to get all their emotional beats. And basically, he has a camera that knows, because all the computers and the different 120 cameras that are in the ceiling of the volume are in real time generating the environment that what it will look like in CGI. So he can actually do the camera moves himself around the digital environment, literally with a camera he's holding in his hands. And they performance capture all the CGI stuff. They film all the live action stuff. And then James Cameron goes back to the volume by himself without any of the actors, because the volume has all of the digital performances saved, and then he can figure out how to shoot it. So it's just him with the camera in this massive room. I think it's 6 times the size of any volume before it. And he can actually do the close-ups and stuff during action scenes by literally walking over to where the computer thinks the digital version of Jake Sully is and doing a close-up on his face. So they film the movie, basically, they make it 3 times. I think each minute is around 18 gigabytes of data. Wow. Each frame takes hours to render. Jesus. Weta uses a 10,000 square foot server farm with over 4,000, specifically Hewlett-Packard servers. So that's a lot of, that's the thing that's why a lot of animated movies are shorter, especially if they're CGI. It takes a long time to render that shit.
Yep.
So, they do even more crazy stuff. Even in the live action, they're doing crazy filming techniques because they invent the way that they film it 3D with a camera pointing up into a beam splitter and another camera like that they can move. So before that, when you do native 3D, you have literally 2 cameras, a right eye and a left eye next to each other. They still have a right eye and a left eye, but they don't have to be next to each other. They can actually change distance apart depending on how the human eye would focus, depending on the distance of the thing. So the 3D is more natural. Maybe you'll know someday. Yeah.
If there's anything you're ever going to catch me saying nice about James Cameron, it is his absolute just passion for pushing the limits and pushing things forward. That is fun. It's something I love. It's specifically in video games more than film, just because of where my hobbies lie. But it's really fun to see people do stuff that hasn't been done before, and James Cameron does that for better or for worse. Not too many people sink an entire ship in a giant 17 million gallon tank or whatever, and not too many people film a movie 3 times in a Star Trek hologram room or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It did not win. Another thing I wanted to talk about real quick was it did not win Best Score, which I remember looking up when I was listening to it, because I'm like, oh, this is actually a really good score. Probably won for Best Score. Yeah. And I looked, and it lost to Up. I just want to throw out for Michael Giacchino real quick. Up is one of probably my favorite film score in the last 20 years. That thing friggin' rules. Mm-hmm. So good on Giacchino for stealing that as well.
James Horner does it for this. He does it for a few other movies we've done. I don't have him in front of me, but
if you look through James Horner's stuff, you'll be like, "Yep, did that." He's got a lot of hits. He's a big. He
worked with Cameron a number of times.
He did Titanic,
Aliens, I think too.
Yeah.
The Titanic's the big one. So he has the highest selling orchestral soundtrack of all time for Titanic, and then also the score to the highest grossing movie of all time in Avatar.
Yep. And one for My Heart Will Go On, which is also an impressive feather in the cap, because that song friggin' rules.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into ratings. Every week I'll post our ratings on letterboxd.com. Who wants to set the tone on this one?
I'll set the tone, because I said out loud when we were watching it a lot of times what I felt I was going to give this movie. I will give this movie 3 get-somes out of 5.
That's a good one.
Cool.
I'll probably give it... 1.5 creepy tendrils. I'm giving the 1 star because the world is really, really good. The creature designs are very good. And the 0.5 stars for the score because the score is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fair enough. Keeps it above the lowest rating given because that was still just a single star for Nightmare on Elm Street.
You go.
This is, like I said, it played gangbusters for me this time. So probably 4 Stanford tank tops out of 5. Acknowledging all the other shit, but I just know, just to be honest, I really liked it this time. I don't want to lie to you guys.
No. I feel like I've solidly been at like a 3 for this one.
That's fair.
So a 3 home trees out of 5.
Rip.
I know.
I feel like that puts it on Letterboxd about where it should be. Not maybe
That'll be
your opinion.
around a 3, I think.
Yeah.
2.5 to
2.5 to 3.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there.
I usually go to the nearest number. I don't remember. I either go to the nearest number or I go to like the half that it achieved. You know?
I was at like 3.5 for a while, and then I really wasn't that happy about the ending stuff. So
interesting.
Yeah, so I bumped it back down.
All right. Thank you for everyone to be on podcast today. Is that works?
Yeah.
It was Kay, Bree, and Sam.
It sure was.
Yeah. That's us.
It went well. We all had fun. We all Sivako'd. And thank you, listeners, for making Sahelu with your podcast launcher of choice. And
I hope it's Podbeans.
yeah, if it wasn't, you can find us on Podbeans, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Podbeans again. You can buy a t-shirt. By the time this episode comes out, I might have the 2023 ladies shirt
Ooh.
in the store. If you've never listened to this podcast before, it's Ladies with a T. That's the name of our annual award show, this being only the second year of the podcast. It'll be the second annual one. So look for that by, 50. How many people are coming over your house for the party where you all listen to it? By that many. You can email Noah at late2themovies@gmail.com. You can see our fun posters at late2themovies_podcast on Instagram. Both of those are the number 2, not the letters. And that'll about do it. Do it. Anything else? Any bits? We don't have to do bits.
We had some good bits, so I think
We had some good bits. We the yelling at Jake Sully bit stays in. That was gold.
Yes.
That's.
I hope you save at least like 3 legs bits.
Yeah.
Or else the other legs bits aren't going to make sense.
You haven't gone native on me, have you, boy? You sound like a man who doesn't want these legs. He's just twirling.
Just twirling like
like nunchucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.